Hello and welcome back to Let's Talk More on Monday. I'm your podcast host, Chloe, and we are continuing our Issue 9 Identity Contributor series, where I sit down with women who contributed to Issue 9 Identity of More, and we talk about how that all came together and some of the behind the scenes looks of how it came together, what it looks like, why they ended up here today. So, this is definitely a very special piece. This feature called Women Setting the Table was an inaugural recognition of our Save a Seat campaign on Patreon and women coming together to share how they set the table for other women to share and create more equitable spaces. So, we are joined by a couple of really lovely women. I will let them introduce themselves and tell you more about them. But thank you both so much for joining me today.
Thank you for
Yeah,
having me.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
we're always excited to sit down and talk to women who are paving the way in a sense. So, Maria, I'll have you start. Tell us who you are, what you do, and how you came to be a part of this piece.
Sure. So thank you again. It's for having me. It's an honor to be included in this group, and I'm really grateful for that opportunity. So my name is Maria Berglund. I am a Canadian mom living in Oregon. I have three sons, and my husband and we live just outside of Portland. And I started the nonprofit InKind Boxes in 2019 after having children here in the US and just realizing the incredible lack of postpartum support that there is for families here. So, what we do is provide natural and organic essentials for newborns in need and their mothers and birthing parents. And we help hundreds of families each year. It's really important for us to show up and be a village for those families.
Yeah, and it seems like you definitely do that, and it's such an important space to fill because I think that can definitely feel very isolating, especially if you don't have like the natural supports in place.
Yeah.
So it must be a real gift.
Yeah, it's really special. It's very touching. And yeah, there's a lot I could say about it, but I really feel like the larger that we can build InKind's village of support, is the better, because there are just so many families that are struggling out there and just really need to feel that love.
Yeah, amazing. Well, Lisa, I will take it over to you. I'll have you introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and how you came to join.
Sure. My name is Lissa Prudencio. It's pronounced Lisa, even though it has two S's. And I run a company called Wealth for Women of Color. It is a financial education platform. I'm also a financial coach, and I am in the early stages. So this has only been around for going on 3 years. And the reason I created it was because I realized myself as a woman of color that I was not exposed to the information that you need to actually build wealth and financial security. I learned some things from my parents, like how to build my credit, how to be frugal, but I never really learned how to manage money in the sense of really achieving financial security. And so that path led me to taking an interest in personal finance. So about 2 years ago, I left my full-time job in the tech industry to continue learning about finance as well as educating on social media platforms. I also run workshops. And my goal is the reason I called it Wealth for Women of Color is so that a woman, specifically a woman of color, sees the brand and just knows that they are in the conversation. I think a lot of times I know I ignored things like the stock market, investing, because it felt inaccessible to me.
Mhm.
I just want people who come across my brand to know that, pique their curiosity so that they are interested. And then maybe it's that gateway for them to come into the world to be proactive about their own finances.
Yeah. It is daunting, like especially the stuff with stock trading and like the different accounts you can open. I'm just starting the process of opening a Roth IRA because my company doesn't have a 401k. So, I'm 28 and just now getting into this whole, realm of like, how do I set aside money for later? So it is definitely kind of scary. So I think you are opening the door, especially for women of color who may not have a lot of resources out there or their families haven't been educated in the past about this. So,
Yeah.
yeah. you're definitely both doing very important work.
Thank you.
So I want to pose a group question to you guys first, and then we can get more into the individuals. But you guys were interviewed for this piece for Women Setting the Table by our wonderful Zoe Walsh, who thank you so much for her contribution for writing this piece. We really appreciate getting it all, out onto the page. But what was that process like for you guys in terms of the interview, like the behind the scenes of how this all came together?
Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, for me, it was, I really enjoyed it because it made me dig a little bit deeper to remember what I'm doing it for.
Hmm.
Because often, especially like I'm self-employed, I'm a one-person show. I have a very, very small team of contractors, and I'm looking to build this up in the future. But right now, it's a lot of go, go, go. And the ability to really think about myself and my identity and my purpose and my reasoning for doing this, it it gives me motivation and inspires me to continue and do more. And I have a lot more ahead of me that I want to do, but that, answering those questions just really made me it forced me to reflect. I think I do some reflection about once a year, twice a year in the new year, but being able to reflect on my purpose and my mission more often, I think is going to help me continue with what I'm doing.
Yeah, we've heard that a lot in these interviews about, especially the identity issue. I think it just gave people a chance to, like you said, think about why they're doing it, like return to the roots. How did it start? What are my intentions moving forward? Like, analyze it from a big picture perspective. And I think that's definitely really valuable because we don't get that on an everyday scale, right? Like we're not constantly self-evaluating. You can't. You get lost in the day to day and it's impossible. But I think this was a good chance for people to, you know, confront their identity and think like, what is my purpose? How can I enhance it moving forward? And how can I bring other people into it? I think is the root of this Women Setting the Table piece is how can we bring other women to the table as well and give them the opportunities that, we're finding. What was your experience, Maria?
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty similar to Lisa in that there's a lot of reflection and kind of just like going back to the start. Because InKind's been around for 5 years. And I know that what I'm doing is good and worthwhile and important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but just stopping to think about like how I felt when I first got this going and
And
like
it's been a wild 5 years.
I mean, yeah, and we have had some really amazing like highs and like very wonderful things have happened for us in terms of like getting highlights from media outlets and just people in in the social media world and whatnot. Um, but like I think sometimes it stopping to reflect on those things and just remembering those highlights and those big moments and um, in those moments turning around and looking around and seeing like who else is in my space that I can lift up along the way. I think like building that village and network of like-minded women while we're going through this process is really important and really special to find other women with that same energy that you have and want to see others succeed. I think that is really cool and fun and exciting part. It's like an offshoot of what I get to do. It's really, really special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're creating a community of people that have like intentions, which can be really meaningful,
Yeah, it's
especially
not
if
about competition at all. It's about like how can we all do well and include each other and support one another, which
yeah.
is why I love your magazine very much.
That is definitely, one of our missions as well is to create that community and uplift the voices of people who are doing amazing things like you guys. Like that is our number one mission. So, um, talking about community, I feel like it's a really good segue for my question for you, Maria. This idea of, it takes a village, and that can be true of child raising. It can be true of creating a business or really anything that we look to tackle. So it creates this opportunity for us to support one another. How do you feel like this support helping to correct those like economic inequalities around mothers and families in need? Do you feel like you have seen that in these 5 years that InKind has gotten started? Do you get like feedback stories?
Yeah, we do get feedbacks. So I don't get to necessarily have direct communication with a lot of the moms that we help because we have partnerships with well-established organizations that are already providing prenatal or postpartum care for struggling families. So through our partnerships, the partners give us stories or photos of the families. Sometimes it's hard because these families are trying to remain private for safety reasons, so they are not able to share, which I totally understand. But sometimes I get stories even from partner organizations that the moms have shared that I'm allowed to receive privately, and it's touching and it's sweet and it's heartbreaking at the same time. And um, just the fact that you know the items that we include in the gift box, it's for the newborn baby, but the other half of those items are for the mother or the birthing parent, and it shows them that we see them and we care about them and that their needs matter too. I feel like there's a lot of focus on pregnancy, and then once you have the baby, the focus becomes on the baby itself, and the mother becomes lost, the birthing parent becomes lost, or they're supposed to become invisible. They're not supposed to want to have their needs met because then that's selfish. And I just really disagree with that whole narrative. And I feel like with this work, we're shifting it and helping people understand that our needs continue to matter into the fourth trimester and beyond. And yeah, it's really special to be able to have a tiny pocket of the internet where I can share that information and people can find us and understand that like they don't need to be invisible, that people do care about them and want to help them thrive after birth.
Yeah.
And I also feel like it sets an example, that every family deserves a village. Just because, they're struggling or going through some issues, they might not be able to build that same network that some other people have. They might not be able to have like a mule train or these other things where people are coming and showering them with that love and support. So there's an online village, even if there's not one physical.
I did write a piece. We did a partnership with the Milk Bank in Indianapolis. I believe it was for issue 3. And it just really highlighted for me, especially this idea that, the help does not, it gets more meaningful after the baby is born because there are so many needs both for mother and baby. And if there's one less thing to worry about or, a little pampering that can be done, like that can be huge for everybody's well-being.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to turn the mic over to you, Lissa. I had a question pre-prepared for you as well with this wealth for women of color. And, you seem pretty self-taught as it goes, which is so impressive. And I wanted to pick your brain about the most important lesson you've learned about financial literacy and, what it was like to recognize this gap in understanding specifically for women of color.
So I have a hot take. I actually, the more I'm in this financial field, financial education field, we always talk about how we don't have enough financial literacy in school. And I don't doubt that. I actually agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the bigger issue I see with women of color, but also more broadly women, and also any other marginalized group, is more a lack of confidence. I think that if you don't have confidence to know that there is a world where you can be financially secure, or there is a world where you can learn to invest and learn these supposedly complicated things that, again, we just didn't learn growing up. I think
Right.
if you're able to build that confidence, you're more motivated to be proactive and learn on your own or get support. um, so embarrassingly, in the last couple of years, I just realized this in the last 3 years in doing this work, I've gotten 5 different various financial certifications. So I'm constantly learning in a more structured manner as well as being self-taught. And I don't know if that's a mix of, I don't know if that's imposter syndrome, because I do believe I know what I'm talking about. But I've learned in this journey that I've had to also build that confidence myself.
Yeah.
Um, it takes me back to this one other story that I always tell is when I was in graduate school. So I was in a room with lots of smart people. You know, I was in grad school. I should theoretically be smart as well. We did a round table where everyone had to say what career they wanted to go into. And I was like, "Oh, I want to work in the entertainment industry. I want to work in film." And then the guy after me, he was a white man next to me.
Of
He
course.
started talking about how he was going to go into hedge funds like his father. And I don't know why that stuck with me, because I didn't know what he was talking about. But for that one interaction, it symbolizes a lot of things to me. It was one, like systemically, how would I ever know what a hedge fund was when I came from a family of immigrants,
Mhm.
who never even knew who never even invested in the stock market, let alone, hedge funds.
Right.
And he's over here talking about how he's going to follow in his father's footsteps, right? There's like some nepotism, and it's a privilege. It's not his fault. He didn't choose to be born into that, but he was.
Mhm.
But then the other piece was my lack of confidence to admit that I didn't know what that was, or to ask questions, I just felt small. I felt like, oh, maybe everyone else knows what this is, but I don't. So I kind of just like tossed it to the side. And here we are, maybe like 15 years after that, when I finally know what a hedge fund is. But that's way too long of a gap of
Mhm.
time, to lack that, not just financial literacy, but the financial confidence. So I would say that that's a big thing that I'm working on, with my audiences on social media, is to teach them the practical things, but also teach them that they can be empowered to learn on their own, and that it is possible. So it's both mindset and practical things that I like to teach.
Yeah, just this idea that like not only white guys with daddy's money can be investing in these big things, right?
Yeah, there might be more obstacles, there might be more things to navigate, but that's just, if you were dealt whatever cards you were dealt, there's a way to play them.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for sharing some of these individual thoughts about the wonderful things that you are doing. Please, if you are listening to this, make sure to join us over on Patreon. We are going to get into some more big picture stuff. How can we set the table for other women, make more equitable spaces? So we're going to get into that over there. So please go join us over there, save a seat with us. But before we go, Maria, Lisa, are there any websites, LinkedIn's that you want people to check you out at if they are hearing this and like, oh my gosh, I want to be a part of this?
Uh,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
so I can be found on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at Wealth for Women of Color, no spaces. And I also have a brand new podcast that just came out a couple months ago called Net Podcast. And our whole goal is to empower people to make their own financial decisions. So, yeah, check it out.
Amazing.
Yeah, if people want to learn more about our mission and support us, or if they're struggling and need some help, we're on social platforms at InKind Boxes, and inkindboxes.org is our website.
Awesome. We will link that in the show notes, so make sure to go check out these wonderful resources. And like I said, join us over at patreon.com/more magazine. We are going to be digging deeper with these contributors about how we can make a more just world. So we'll catch you over there. And thanks for talking more on Monday. Bye-bye.
Thank you.